Chapter 4. Cabbage and Carbide. Groaning under the relentless assault of the Pacific storm, the canvas walls of the catering tent billowed and strained in ceaseless mid-tempo syncopation. Rain lashed against the fabric in sharp bursts, driven by wind that seemed to howl with increasing fury. Outside, the temporary constructs of the encampment scattered and tumbled. Carts overturned, tarps flapped like desperate wings, and a lone folding chair tumbled end over end across the sand before vanishing into the underbrush. Offshore, the Marisol 2 rolled uneasily on the dark, churning sea, its anchor chain contorting with each shift of the restless vessel. Back in the tent, the colonel sat at the apex of the round table, now splattered with water as if deliberately spread by a mischievous infant. Prather's fingers idly traced the rim of his microphone as he pondered the message trickling through his earpiece. They had come back from commercial for some time, but as was his habit, Prather completely lost track and continued his discussion with Yuri. In turn, the engineer began playing the second side of King Crimson's In the Wake of Poseidon. "No, I get it," the host murmured into the headset, trying to achieve an odd balance between a confidential aside and live broadcast. "I wouldn't panic, Yuri. Pink cocaine doesn't necessarily have cocaine in it, per se. Do me a favor. Look for a yellow post-it note in my Buddha bag for Dr. Ernesto Salazar. I might have him listed under El Tiburon." "Sure, I'll wait. Do you remember the tax write-off for the dolphin thing? Same guy. He's going to answer the phone in a whisper, so call him from somewhere quiet." "All right." Prather turned down Wake of Poseidon from his console and straightened in his chair, his voice lifting to address his audience. "Folks, welcome back. We're going to check in with Enoch Price in a while here for his progress through the underground infrastructure for our temporary installation here on Christmas Island." Pastor Fawn Ferrier, hunched in his chair as though trying to hide from the storm's fury, tilted his head with sudden interest. "Colonel," he sparkled, "I wonder if you know a licenciado Pedro Valdez out of San Jose, Costa Rica. He's helped me out of a fair spot or two." Prather frowned faintly. Linda Prince Pine interjected, wrapped in recollection. "This conversation does take me back to my days tracking the Fenelton triplets in Milan in 1990 for my novel Triple Threat. I was arrested for malicious loitering by the Ufficio di Quartiere sul Marciapiede during the Cabbage and Carbide festival." "Malicious loitering?" Prather's curiosity piqued. Linda nodded, her voice unhurried, as if recounting a well-worn anecdote. "Margot Dumont was an avocatessa in Verona at the time, but took the night train over and got the whole case tossed in exchange for an oil portrait of the Thurnon Taxi's iron works. The Italian government insisted it be painted by the estranged son of Claudio Fornari. I had to purchase it, of course." Prather raised an eyebrow. "The Thurnon Taxi's iron works again. I never understood the allure, even when Cheryl Ladd painted it." He paused, his brow furrowing. "What's Fornari's kid's name?" "No one knows," Linda replied, folding her hands neatly on the table. "He's only ever referred to as the estranged son of Claudio Fornari." The pastor chimed, "Had I sired a child, I would have liked very much to name them the estranged son of Tamor Fawn Ferrier." "It's very noble sounding." The tent shuddered as another gust of wind ripped against its walls, sending a fine spray of rain misting through the seams. Prather froze for a moment into a look of infantile surprise, then raised the end of the next announcement, blinking his eyes through the unwelcome moisture. Enoch Price wiped the damp sleeve of his jacket across his brow, the pinpoint amber glow of a transistor radio clutched in his hand, guiding him through the installation's murky corridors. He paused outside a rusting metal supply cabinet, his hunger gnawing at him. Inside, he found a dismal water-saturated egg sandwich, approximately 6 years old, based on the newsprint ad functioning as its serving plate, the formerly edible contents reduced to an unappetizing paste. "I have seen the face of the barbarian. I have witnessed his offspring." Price grimaced, a heavy sigh spilled out from him as he moved onward, the radio crackling faintly as Prather's voice cut through the static. "Folks, here's a quick public service announcement from the Safe Streets Ann Arbor Initiative." Prather's voice was crisp and small. "Reminding you that corruption, violence, and evil fester in the smallest cracks, spread in the faintest shadows, and take root in the seemingly innocuous habits of those around us. None of us can just sit around chatting happily, waiting for the world to end. You and you alone may be the first line of defense against moral decay. Enoch stepped gingerly over a fallen mop handle, his polished shoes leaving veneer impressions on the slick floor. The sound of a machine turning itself over echoed from somewhere ahead, its unsettling purpose disguised by darkness. Ann Arbor is proud to unveil a revolutionary new strategy for identifying and addressing civic corrosion. Observe, insert, immobilize. Turning a corner, Enoch stumbled into a cavernous, moribund kitchen. Stainless steel counters and hulking appliances loomed like relics of a bygone aluminum-obsessed civilization. He froze, his breath hitching as he heard the distinct, reverberated cluck of a chicken. The radio spoke. Number 1. Observe. His glance slid down and to the left, as if mopping the wet, filth-heavy cement. There it stood, like the hangman. Gallus domesticus, he noted silently, squat, its plumage an evolutionary triumph, a tight interlocking system of barbs and barbules, ideal for repelling water, regulating temperature, and most terrifyingly granting short bursts of flight. But this was not the leader, he suspected. Your neighborhood may look perfect, but look closer. Enoch thumbed the radio's voice down a notch with the outside advice. Now another cluck answered, sharper and closer. Enoch's eyes darted to the edge of the rightward shadows as the second bird stepped into view, long, pointed, iridescent saddle feathers, a male, an unnerving intelligence in the fowl's beady eyes. Seeds, fruits, insects, berries. But what do they eat when they become truly desperate? A column of sweat marked his face, running alongside the thought. The radio quickly betrayed his position. Prather's voice droned on as Price backed into the center of the kitchen. A shadow crosses your neighbor's window 3 times in a 6-hour period. Your reliably unstable co-worker, Annette, stopped stabbing the plush giraffe in her cubicle. Why? Nothing positive has happened in her life. Your child lingers at the mailbox, reading furniture sale flyers. These are signs, folks. The chicken tilted its head, assessing him. Enoch froze as if a bronze memorial to himself. A single eye of this beast was equipped with a field of vision exceeding 300 degrees, a marvel of avian engineering. But the light was low. This was to his advantage, although its other senses might compensate. Ask yourself, how much do you really know your surroundings? A cohort's zygodactyl foot emerged from the shadows. More fowl followed, a third, fourth, and fifth, their talons clicking ominously on the tile. Enoch's pulse quickened, a sea of beaks conferring, curved with precision, housing a trifecta of functions. Preening, grasping, and, when required, delivering an alarming puncture. Their leader did not break his gaze. Might you actually be in danger? A strange, unregulated pressure built up inside until Enoch suddenly cried, ad unum omnes. Twisting at the waist, his body began a motion that looked like the first 10% of a leap. An odd maneuver which he employed in confrontations that accomplished only delay. He'd long mistaken the confusion of his adversaries over this move for its efficacy. Around 1.5 seconds later, Enoch leapt away awkwardly, easily ripping the seam of his crotch 7 to 8 inches. A pained moan of recognition escaped with his clumsy steps, as if he'd been shot with a small-caliber weapon. Collapsing mere feet away, he scuttled behind a counter, his back pressed to the cool metal. Prather's small voice continued, Second, insert yourself, make casual inquiries, gain their trust, be the friend they never knew they needed. This step is critical. Like Mahatma Gandhi once mused, the noxious boils of corruption thrive on the actions of our secret, evil enemies. Enoch peered around the edge of the counter, his breath catching as another male in the group flared its wings and released a guttural squawk. With a burst of adrenaline, he scrambled toward a row of industrial ovens, narrowly avoiding his predators as they burst into motion. Finally, immobilize, subdue the suspect. The voice followed Enoch as he threw open an oven door and dived inside, slamming it shut just as a talon scraped across the handle. The radio, now tucked under his arm, hissed with static as Prather's voice carried on. You're prepared for this moment, since you've already picked up a roll of Special Enforcement Unit triple grip duct tape. at any partway hardware location or by typing in the initials for the Safe Task Force for Ann Arbor Surveillance Initiative to download the app on any platform. Price briefly questioned his Philistine insistence on a Kirov Sigma 900 flip phone. The now-worn Bulgarian slogan on the back, translated to "Brief is the reign of empire," with a ringtone that defaulted to a haunting, nasal version of the Soviet-era ballad Polyushko Polye. This could not be changed. A wet slap of a wing on the glass startled him. Shadows chaotically crowded the meager sightline to dingy industrial glazed kitchen cement. They all mingled, agitated like impatient tourists, waiting for a gate, their clucks growing louder, more insistent. Sweat dribbled down Enoch's temple as he scanned the interior of his temporary apartment, his fingers brushing against a ventilation grate at the back. Apply the special enforcement tape liberally. Ensure their movements are restricted for their own safety and that of the community. Enoch braced his feet against the walls of the oven and kicked the grate free, sending it clattering into the duct beyond. The chickens squawked in unison, their frenzy escalating. "Once the suspect is secure," Prather's voice advised as Enoch wriggled into the narrow ventilation shaft. The sadistic metal walls closed in further as if the oven had birthed him into a cruel canal. Behind the soles of his escaping shoes and through the glass, the lead chicken's eye shimmered in the low light, its nictitating membrane sweeping across with the mechanical precision of a guillotine as the radio's static faded into the distance. Simply use the Safe Streets Ann Arbor Initiative app to summon the authorities. A member of the Interaction Engagement Team will arrive in minutes. Armed with a minimum of 6 grueling hours in policing science, they will promptly evaluate and grade your restraints, removing the suspect in a recyclable transport bag. Choose from 11 different bag colors to help classify and organize your busts. Enoch's shoulders scraped against the metal as he crawled, the dim light from the radio casting a strange, razor-thin puppet show ahead of him. Behind, the sound of talons against glass echoed ominously, growing fainter with each desperate push forward. Enoch finally emerged into a small maintenance corridor marked with a small painted sign, reading "PNSS Eng Only," his breath coming in ragged gasps. He slumped against the wall, the radio still crackling faintly. The city of Ann Arbor reminds you that crime isn't someone else's problem, it's yours, and together we can make sure it stays that way. Enoch glanced upward. A lone yellow light bulb, long free of its modernist cover, flickered dangerously, loitering on the edge of darkness.